Before Israel became a nation, before Egypt became a place of refuge, God was already working through the life of one young man. This is not a story of chance. It is a story of purpose, hidden behind jealousy, betrayal, and suffering. This is the beginning of Joseph. Joseph was 17 years old. He helped his brothers tend their father's flocks. His father, Jacob, loved Joseph more than all his other sons, because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. And Jacob made Joseph a special robe, richly decorated. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him. They could not speak peaceably to him. Joseph had dreams. In one dream, Joseph and his brothers were binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly, Joseph's sheaf stood upright, and the sheaves of his brothers gathered around it and bowed down. When Joseph told this dream to his brothers, their hatred grew stronger. They said, "Do you intend to reign over us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dreams. Then Joseph had another dream. He said, "Listen, I had another dream. This time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told this dream to his father and brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. One day, Joseph's brothers had gone to pasture their father's flocks near Shechem. Jacob said to Joseph, "Go and see if your brothers and the flocks are well, and bring word back to me." So Joseph set out from the valley of Hebron and came to Shechem. When Joseph arrived, he found that his brothers had moved on. A man found him wandering in the fields and asked what he was looking for. Joseph said, "I am looking for my brothers." The man replied, "They have gone to Dothan." So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But when they saw him in the distance, before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to one another. "Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of these pits. Then we will say a wild animal devoured him, and we will see what becomes of his dreams." When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue Joseph from their hands. He said, "Let us not take his life. Do not shed blood. Throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him." Reuben said this intending to rescue Joseph later and bring him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the richly decorated robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat. As they looked up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers listened to him. So when the Midianite merchants passed by, Joseph was pulled up out of the pit, and they sold him for 20 shekels of silver. And the merchants took Joseph down to Egypt. And Joseph was gone. Joseph was taken down to Egypt and sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. Though Joseph was far from home and alone in a foreign land, the Lord was with him. Everything Joseph did prospered, and Potiphar saw that the Lord caused all that Joseph did to succeed. Joseph was placed over Potiphar's house and put in charge of all that he owned. From the time Joseph was made overseer, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's household because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. Joseph grew strong and capable. He was well-built and handsome. After a time, Potiphar's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph and said, "Lie with me." But Joseph refused. He said, "My master trusts me with everything in his house. He has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" Day after day, she spoke to Joseph, but he would not listen to her. One day, Joseph went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house were inside. She caught him by his garment and demanded that he lie with her. Joseph left his garment in her hand and fled outside. Angered, she called the servants and falsely accused Joseph. When Potiphar came home, she told him the lie again and showed him the garment Joseph had left behind. Potiphar burned with anger and had Joseph thrown into prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But the Lord was with Joseph. God showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. Soon, Joseph was placed in charge of all the prisoners, and whatever was done there, Joseph was responsible for it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with him and caused all he did to succeed. After some time, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their lord and were thrown into the prison where Joseph was confined. One night, each of them had a dream, and both dreams troubled them. Joseph noticed their sadness and asked why their faces were downcast. They told him they had dreams, but no one to interpret them. Joseph said, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell them to me." Joseph interpreted their dreams just as God revealed them. The cupbearer would be restored to his position, and the baker would be put to death. Everything happened exactly as Joseph had said. Before the cupbearer left, Joseph said, "Remember me when it goes well with you, and mention me to Pharaoh." But the cupbearer forgot Joseph. 2 full years passed. Then Pharaoh dreamed. He saw 7 healthy cows rising from the Nile, followed by 7 thin cows that devoured them. He dreamed again of 7 full heads of grain swallowed by 7 thin ones. Pharaoh was troubled, and no one could interpret his dreams. Then the cupbearer remembered Joseph. Joseph was quickly brought out of prison, shaved, and brought before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said he had heard Joseph could interpret dreams. Joseph replied, "It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." Joseph explained the dreams. 7 years of abundance were coming, followed by 7 years of severe famine. Joseph advised Pharaoh to appoint a wise man to store grain during the years of plenty. Pharaoh saw that the Spirit of God was with Joseph and placed him over all the land of Egypt. Joseph was made second in command, given authority over the nation, and entrusted with preparing for the famine. During the years of abundance, Joseph stored vast amounts of grain. When the famine came, the people cried out for food, and Pharaoh said, "Go to Joseph. What he says to you, do." The famine spread to other lands, including Canaan. Jacob sent Joseph's brothers to Egypt to buy grain. When they arrived, they bowed before Joseph, not recognizing him. Joseph recognized them and remembered his dreams. Joseph tested their hearts. He accused them, questioned them, and demanded that they bring their youngest brother, Benjamin. The brothers spoke of their guilt, not knowing Joseph could understand them. Joseph turned away and wept. When they returned with Benjamin, Joseph's emotions overwhelmed him. He tested them one final time, placing a cup in Benjamin's sack and accusing him of theft. Judah stepped forward and offered himself as a slave in Benjamin's place. At that moment, Joseph could no longer restrain himself. He sent everyone out and wept aloud. He said, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" His brothers were terrified. But Joseph said, "Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life." Joseph forgave them. He brought his father Jacob and his whole family to Egypt, where they lived in safety. Joseph provided for them all the days of the famine. After Jacob died, Joseph's brothers feared he would seek revenge. But Joseph said, "Do not fear. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring about that many people should be kept alive." And Joseph lived to see God's promises fulfilled.